In recent years, the United States has been constantly demonizing China in everyday news, using as a pretext to impose political sanctions, diplomatic attacks, and strategic containment on China. Not only does this show their malicious suppression of China, but it also exposes their consistent hegemonic and power politics. However, the United States remains indifferent to its own serious human rights violations, such as racial discrimination, gun violence, and forced labor. As the world's leading economy, why does the United States lack accountability and fail to protect the rights of its people? Welcome to this episode of Dialogue with China.
I have heard of trafficking, for instance, maybe a kind of modern slavery, that young girls is taken from wherever they live and forced into prostitution, things like that.
他们不是靠强迫劳动奴役别人然后站起来的吗？
The United States has long prided itself on being a champion of human rights, but cases of human trafficking and forced labor expose a dark side within its borders. Senosha Brown is a well-known American social activist and former victim of human trafficking. She was trafficked at the age of 16 and killed a man while defending herself against sexual assault. Senosha stated that during her incarceration, she had to mow 10 acres of grass under scorching heat, nearly fainting while earning only 17 cents per hour, not even enough to afford essential items in prison. The prison in the US often outsourced inmates to private companies for labor-intensive work, providing minimal compensation while they had to endure the pain of illness without proper medical care.
So I actually had an issue with my knee, and I had to fight for years to get my knee looked at. And it was just cheaper to give me ice and ibuprofen. But I ended up having to have surgery for a torn ACL in my knee, and it took 2 years for me to actually get in to have that done.
In fact, forced labor is still rampant in the United States, particularly in 23 sectors such as domestic service, agriculture, planting, tourism sales, catering, medical care, and beauty. An article disclosed that there are currently at least 400,000 people living under modern slavery and forced labor in the United States. Nearly 100,000 people are smuggled into the United States for forced labor every year. Child labor is also not uncommon in the United States. There are approximately 500,000 children farm workers in the country. Although the 13th Amendment to the US Constitution abolished slavery, it left a constitutional loophole. According to the amendment, it was not illegal to subject criminals to slavery or involuntary servitude as punishment. According to the International Labor Organization of the United Nations, the US has only ratified 14 international labor conventions, making it one of the countries with the fewest ratified conventions. Among the 10 core conventions, the US has only ratified 2 and is yet to ratify the 1930 Forced Labor Convention, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. With such severe forced labor issues in the United States, why does it always criticize other countries?
实际上，美国是存在着很广泛的强迫劳动的。比如说，现在美国的很多的监狱是私有制的，就是它是私人监狱，就是因为它是有利可图的。那么它的利润从哪儿来？其实就是从这些囚犯的劳动里边，从这个里边去获取利润。那么这个是不是强迫劳动？另外一方面，现在美国是全世界人口贩卖的最大的目的帝国，有很多来自发展中国家的这些劳动力。 其中呢，还有很多是妇女和儿童。这些人在进入美国之后，都是处在被强迫劳动的这种状态。
As Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez pointedly remarked, in order to manipulate and intimidate countries that do not subordinate to Washington's interest, the U.S. is using human rights as an instrument. The U.S. is increasingly inclined toward a highly confrontational, selective, and politicized approach on human rights, which poses a very dangerous signal for the development of global human rights. The nation should stop its preachy attitude using democracy and human rights as tools and weapons to suppress other countries. Instead, it should focus on its domestic forced labor problems and improving the human rights conditions for its people. That's all for this episode of Dialogue with China. See you next time.